Hey, awesome sixth graders. How are y'all doing today? On Tuesday, we got to visit 3 different European countries and it was awesome. Today, we are going to talk about some of the environmental issues in those countries. UK, Germany, Russia. It's going to be awesome. We have everything you need to fill out your notes, and we are going to video chat with some of the top experts in each of those environmental issues. So stay tuned. All right, sixth grade geographers, our first guest today is Dr. Tyler Summe from the German government. He works in the Department of Environmental Studies, and he has some important information for you about what's going on with the German environment.
Is it going? Oh, it's going. Hello, thank you for sending in your interview questions. I am a scientist with the German government in the Environmental Agency. And yes, we do have problems with acid rain. It's been going on for about 30 years now. It pollutes our rivers, damages our forests, and most importantly, destroys our very important architecture that we have in the city of Duisburg, Germany. Yes, so we must figure out this problem so we can protect our city.
What is acid rain? Acid rain is any form of precipitation with high levels of nitric and sulfuric acids. It can occur in the form of snow, fog, and even dry materials that settle to Earth. Most acid rain is caused by human activities. When people burn fossil fuels, sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxides are released into the atmosphere. These gases react with water, oxygen, and other substances to form sulfuric and nitric acid. Winds may spread these acidic solutions over hundreds of miles. After it falls to Earth, acid rain enters water systems as runoff and sinks into the ground. This can make water toxic to crayfish, clams, fish, and other aquatic animals. The rest of the food chain, including non-aquatic species such as birds, is often affected as well. Acid rain also harms forests by damaging trees' leaves, robbing the soil of essential nutrients, and making it hard for trees to take up water. By designing cleaner power plants and using fewer fossil fuels, we can reduce the number of pollutants that create acid rain.
Wow, that is some really interesting stuff about what is going on in Germany with the acid rain situation. Next up, we have a reporter coming to us live from London in the United Kingdom to talk to us about some of their environmental issues. Check it out.
Edward, Nigel Canterbury here. London, the capital of the United Kingdom, is famous for air pollution, otherwise known as smog. Smog is pollution you can see. Thick London smog happens when water in the air mixes with smoke particles from coal fire. In the Great Smog of 1952, the smog was so dense that people died and could not see what was in front of them for 4 days. Transportation slowed, crime increased, and thousands of people lost their lives to pollution. Back to you, Edward.
Thank you so much for that report, Nigel. Now, students, let's talk air pollution in the UK. Like Nigel reported, London, the capital of the United Kingdom, is famous for air pollution, or smog. Smog is air pollution you can see. Thick London smog happens when water in the air mixes with the smoke particles from a coal fire. In the Great Smog of 1952, the fog was so dense that people could not see what was in front of them for 4 days. Transportation slowed, crime increased, and thousands of people actually died from the pollution. So, despite the issue of smog in the United Kingdom, there are some solutions. Smokeless zones in London where only smokeless fuel could be used. There is also increased use of electricity, and automakers now build vehicles that produce less exhaust. The United Kingdom's government regularly checks air quality to try to fix some of these problems and create lasting solutions. Just take a look at some of the changes and improvements from then until now. That smog situation in London really does sound like a serious issue. I hope that you sixth graders are able to be the generation that creates some of the solutions to these problems. For our last guest today, we have everyone's favorite substitute teacher and famous Russian general, my cousin, General Brinkovich. Greetings, American students. It is General Brinkovich again. I want to tell you about something terrible that happened in 1985 in a country very close to Russia called Ukraine. There was a terrible, terrible nuclear facility accident, and I hope you learn much about it today. What you just saw was a simulated explosion that looked like the one that happened at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in 1986. The cause was that on April 25th, 1986, there was a nuclear accident at a nuclear power plant in Chernobyl, Ukraine, very close to Russia. One of the reactors exploded. Tons of radioactive material surrounded the plant, poisoning the air and water. The resulting fire released most of the radiation into the atmosphere. Spikes in atmospheric radiation were measured as far away as Sweden. Thousands of miles away, it took 9 days and 5,000 tons of sand, boron, dolomite, clay, and lead dropped from helicopters to put it out. The causes of the accident are described as a fateful combination of human error and imperfect technology. Now let's look at the effects of Chernobyl. The soil, groundwater, and surface water were totally contaminated. The land had to be evacuated because radiation levels were incredibly unsafe. Trees and plants died. Animals, including fish and livestock, became ill, and some that didn't die became unsafe to eat. The economic impact on Eastern, Northern European farmers was disastrous because they could no longer grow their crops. Health issues, such as high rates of cancer, birth defects, and even death, were felt widely throughout the region. Now, are there solutions to this disaster? Well, there are some, but it is still a very complicated issue. The reactor was buried in concrete, but it is still not safe. It's falling apart. 9 million people are directly or indirectly affected by this disastrous area of Ukraine. Ukraine decided to be a nuclear-free country from then on. However, there are arguments against this due to their lack of power plants. The debate, which is bigger risk to the environment, nuclear energy, or fossil fuel. They want to decide which one they think is actually worse for the environment. The effects of the disaster may take another 50 years for us to even see the full consequences of the explosion. Villages and cities that used to have thriving populations are now completely deserted, as you can see in the photograph below. Radioactive technics, as far as you can see. A type of army truck, these technics were full of troops on that day. Now they sit in a cemetery of vehicles. In these photos, you can see the cleanup efforts after the disaster and the results of what used to be a nice amusement park as it stands today. This before and after photograph comparison shows what used to be a thriving business and how it is in ruins today. Thank you for joining me in this exploration of the environmental issues of Europe. Be sure to fill out your notes and answer all your questions as you reflect upon what we've just learned. Have an awesome day, 6th graders. You rock.